Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. This is Julie Bruns, and you are about to be inspired. I am so excited to share my conversations with amazing people from all walks of life who figured out how to be happy, peaceful, and content doing work they love and making the world a better place so that you can see what's possible for your life. I can't wait to hear what you think. Send me an email and let me know one thing you're taking away from this episode. And never forget, anything really is possible. Hey everyone, my guest this week is Louisa Jewell. Welcome, Louisa.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. So I came across Louisa's work. It's been several years, and the reason that I'm not quite sure, I have a really good memory, but I've done a lot of personal growth and development over the last several years especially, and I'm always reading articles and books and listening to podcasts and going to webinars and workshops. So I know that it's been several years, but it was at the beginning of all of my, like signing up for workshops and webinars and stuff. And I remember being on, I remember hearing you talking, I want to say it wasn't a podcast, it was probably a workshop because I remember seeing you live.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I don't know what year it was, but I was inspired by you. And then recently I started getting your emails again. And I know that you've been traveling and doing some new things too. So I've been reading your newsletter, and I thought, I'd like to have her on because I didn't have a podcast back then when I learned of your work. I've been doing this podcast for 2.5 years now, but so I love talking to people that inspire me and are doing work they love, which is you. So that's why you're here. I'm really happy to have you.
Oh, thank you. And congratulations on your podcast. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's the best idea I've ever had. One of them anyways, because I get to pick who I talk to, and I get to be inspired, and I get to show other people how to be inspired and what's possible. So it's a win-win, and it's really fun. I love doing it. So
okay, good.
So tell everyone what you do. And I know you've had a journey, because I do remember that learning about your work when I first discovered you. So tell everyone what you do and how you got to this place in your career. Like, did you always see yourself doing what you're doing? And let's start there.
Okay, well, I am a speaker and an author and a workshop facilitator. I also did a podcast with Amazon Audible. My book came out in 2017, Wire Your Brain for Confidence, The Science of Conquering Self-Doubt. So I do a lot of corporate work around, I guess the whole topic of positive psychology, which is the scientific study of psychological well-being and human flourishing. I did my master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania many years ago. So a lot of my work centers around resilience and helping people improve well-being. So I have a number of programs for corporations, but I also have a number of workshops for individuals as well. I'm going to be launching some more programs soon. So did I always see myself doing this work? Well, the whole field of positive psychology didn't start, when I was young. It was something that Martin Seligman founded in 1998. So it's been around for, probably, people have been studying well-being for much longer than that. But the whole field was kind of founded by Marty, just over 20 years ago. And so I read what had happened was I actually fell into a depression. So there were a few things that were going on in my life. I had several miscarriages, which put me into a downward spiral. So together with kind of everything that was going on with my life and these miscarriages, I found myself in a counselor's room, talking because I was in a clinical depression and not feeling good. And I remember every time I would say something, he was reframing it. I would say this, and then he would say, well, is it really that? Or is it, and he would find a much healthier way to reframe what I was saying. And I said to him, this is really good that I'm coming to you for help every week to get through this depression. But really I need to know what you know, because if I want to maintain my long-term mental health, I need to learn how to reframe my own thoughts. I need to know what you're doing so that, I can do it for myself, right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. And so I said, can you give me some books? So he gave me some books. And that's when I discovered the whole field of positive psychology. I actually read a few of Martin Seligman's books. And then I discovered that there was a master's degree in applied positive psychology, and I was just called to it. I thought, this is what I need to be doing. And so I applied, and thankfully I got in because they only take about 35 people every class. So I was very, very grateful to have gotten in, and I was the fourth class that ever graduated. And I've been teaching people about psychological well-being ever since. In 2012, I founded the Canadian Positive Psychology Association, and I am now the running president of the CPPA. And since then, we continue to create conferences and workshops and awards all around promoting this idea of psychological well-being and teaching people and empowering people with this information so that people can do it for themselves, right?
I love that. I love that. I have a brain like that too, where I want to understand why people are doing what they're doing or how they're doing it too. I'm fascinated by human psychology. I always have been. And I love that you studied positive psychology instead of just like, okay, I'm gonna go be a therapist. Nothing wrong with therapy, but it's like you wanna look at the world in a certain way, and you want to teach people to look in the world in a certain way that's gonna help them and help their mental health. So I admire you for doing that. And I love that you were like, listen, I could come here every day or every week and talk to you and you can help me, or I can figure out how to help myself and help other people. Smart, very, very smart. And I'm glad that there's people like you that are doing that work so that other people can get help and not suffer. Because I mean, therapy, there's, obviously there's all kinds of different therapy, but I am a big proponent of it when you need it, obviously, but it's like, you got to teach yourself how to do it and think about things in a different way and come to conclusions. And you're one of your best teachers. And I think that we're not taught that enough, figuring things out. So I'm glad that that's the work you're doing. And when you showed me your book like that, I'm like, I read it. I know. So I don't know when that came out, but I did read it. So that's definitely one of the ways that I was familiar with your work.
Well, and positive psychology is not a replacement for therapy, right? In my experience, I still needed to go see a therapist. And, as I went through different experiences in my life, like, for example, when my ex-husband passed away, I went to see a trained psychologist, right? Because I had never dealt with grief at that level. And so, there's kind of the whole spectrum. If you're feeling that if you are in a clinical depression, we need, psychologists and psychotherapists. Positive psychology is much more for people who are not necessarily mentally ill, but not flourishing either, right? They're kind of languishing, right? And if you find, for example, a lot of people now are not necessarily mentally ill, but they are languishing, especially coming out of the pandemic, right? Not quite sure what they want to do with the rest of their lives or thinking about things. So that's kind of where positive psychology plays in that area of bringing us kind of from neutral to, upper levels of flourishing. And I love that. I love working in that space.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So as you were studying positive psychology and figuring out that this is the work you wanted to do for the long term, what were you, and kind of obviously navigating other things along the way, how did you remain peaceful, happy, and content as you were figuring out what you wanted to do next, like before you discovered positive psychology and then after that?
Well, there really wasn't any kind of job that I could take, right, doing positive psychology. So I really had to craft, my own job. And that didn't always sit right with everybody's idea of what is successful, right? Like I remember my dad asking me, like, are people paying you? Like, Dad, of course people are paying me, right? Like people didn't quite get it. So I think, first of all, what I did was I defined my own success. So I kind of created a definition and then I put everything in that lens, right? Where I said, I want to be helping people. I want to be financially healthy and viable and sustainable. And, I want to be able to set my own schedule, my own agenda, and I can have a good balance. So I had sat down and put my own definition of success. And that's what was really, I think, really important for me, because again, so many people can be so critical of what you do or how you do it. I needed to say, yeah, that's my definition. I'm running my own race. And I think that was very powerful in keeping me kind of grounded. And the other things that I do to stay kind of grounded and healthy and peaceful is meditation. So I think meditation is when I get super busy and super frazzled, meditation in the mornings just can ground me. And I listen to guided meditations just to kind of clear myself. Sometimes morning pages work, where I'll just write out 3 pages of all the junk that's in my head and just clear out my head. And exercise for me is really key. So daily exercise, whether it's yoga or running or beach body video or whatever it is, getting my body moving. For me, after I read all the research on exercise and psychological health, I thought, okay, I have to be exercising every single day. Because before I kind of thought, well, you exercise to make yourself look good, right? That's all. That's what I thought. I thought exercise was just, to look good and to fit into your skinny jeans or whatever. And after finding out all of the brain benefits of doing exercise, I thought I have to be exercising every single day. And that's really important to me. I can always tell I start to go down the rabbit hole when I'm not exercising every day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've started meditating. It's been 5 years now, but same as you, I listen to guided ones. That helps me better. I like focusing on something instead of just having like just the empty space, I guess is probably the best way of saying it. But with the groundedness, and it's just you definitely notice a difference when you don't do it. And then when you get out of the habit, even if it's a couple of days, I was on a trip with my husband over the weekend, and I do it a little bit, but you're not in the same routine, as you would be if you were doing it in your regular place. And so I'll do a little bit of it, but it's just not the same. And I got back to doing it this week again over a couple of days, not doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, I can totally see the theme of the day being different. It's subtle things, but it does make a difference. And there's a reason why they call it a practice. Of course, you're going to feel good doing it once, but if you don't do it every day and your body doesn't get used to it and you don't feel the benefits, and which are all very similar to exercise. I'm sure you've read, it's crazy how much they have in common, but I'm happy that you have all these tools and you discover them. A lot of people, I was talking to someone else recently about, not knowing about these tools have been around for a long, long time. But we weren't taught them when we were younger. I mean, I'm in my 50s now, and I don't even ever remember being in college and someone's telling me about meditating and calming my mind. I'm working and going to school, and you can feel better if you do. It was just like, no, just go work hard and you'll figure out the rest. Like, it wasn't even a concept back then. So I love that it's front and center. Number one, people are being taught it, everyone's talking about it, and it's easily accessible. It's not like you don't have to go get a certification in meditation. You don't even need an app. Doesn't cost any money. And you can have this freedom and this health and this mental well-being for very little effort and money. That's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So do you get a lot of questions about advice? And do people ask you for, I'm sure you do when you're doing all these workshops and stuff, I'm sure you get great questions like about career and finding something that's meaningful, like, I want to do what you do, or I could never do what you do, but I really want to do this. How can I do that? What do you tell people?
Well, in terms of what I do, like I was doing this before I studied positive psychology. I was doing workshops with corporations. So it was a lot easier for me to make that transition, right? But for me, I think I would tell people to do some training in workshop facilitation, right? Learn about how to actually do it, because there is an art and a skill. And then, having done it for decades, you learn on the job, right? Yeah. Like, you definitely learn when you go into a corporate workshop that everyone's been told that they have to attend, and one guy is, sits and faces the back of the class, right?
Yeah.
You learn so much in those moments of how to manage a group, right?
Yeah.
That you just will never learn in a classroom. But for me, I think that is really critical. And then to always be kind of thinking about your your craft, right? Like for me, I took stand-up comedy. So I did stand-up comedy because I wanted to be funnier in my talks. I wanted to learn what makes a joke funny, right? What is a joke? How do you create a joke? What are all the kind of tips and tricks on how to do that? So that's what I always tell people. And then in terms of creating financial sustainability, if you can think about a few sources of revenue streams, right? So I work with one organization and they give me regular revenue every single year. And then I have an Excel spreadsheet of how much I want to make that year. And I say, okay, great, that's going to cover, X amount of revenue for the year. Now, is there another company that might give me another revenue stream? Or is there a program that I can do, that will give me a certain amount of revenue? Because the real trick here is people love to do what I do, but they're really not interested in doing the business side of it, right?
Mhm.
Like the
Mhm.
sales side of it. And even I don't even enjoy that. I just wish, the money would just come and
Of
people
course.
would just send me stuff, right? So I think the marketing piece of it is really important, and to know how to do that so that you're consistently, because if you can't make the money doing what you want to do, you can't do it, right? I mean, I still have to, pay money to live, and for my place, and for my, food, and for my daughter who's still in university, right? I don't, you need that kind of cash. So to be able to learn those things, and how to sort of fill that funnel as well as doing what you want to do, I think is important.
Do you have advice for people that maybe don't want to open their own business, but are just looking for something that they'll be more purposeful in, or more fulfilled? What do you say to those people?
I say do career counseling. I don't know if I did career counseling. I discovered it in my 20s, and it was really life transforming. And in fact, then I became a career counselor for a while because I loved it so much. And career counselors, professional career counselors, really teach you about what is it that brings you joy? What is it that brings you energy and engagement in your life? And I didn't know that. So they take a look at your values, for example. They take a look at your skills and not only what you're good at, but what you're good at and you enjoy doing, right? Like I used to sell computers, and I really didn't enjoy selling computers. And people said, well, you're good at it. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't enjoy it.
Right.
So then when I started to teach entrepreneurs how to sell, this was years ago, I loved that because I was helping, but I didn't know why, right? So then I just said, oh, I want to be helping people. Okay, that's got to be a component of all the work I do, right? That's one
Right.
of my values, right?
Right.
So career counselors take all that. They take your values, what's important to you, and your interests, and your skills, and what you're good at, and then your strengths, right?
Yeah.
And your resume and all that. And then they say, these are the kinds of things that you could be doing that we think would be really helpful, that would make your life great. So I think everybody should go through some form of career counseling. I think that would be huge.
I agree. They ask the right questions and they get you thinking in the right direction, instead of just this, like you said, oh, you're good at this. That was me. I studied marketing when I first went to college, because people said, well, you're good talking to people, you should be in sales. Oh, okay. And then I started doing this marketing degree, and I'm like, I'm not motivated by money. And if you're going to sell, you need to be competitive and motivated by money. I'm like, that doesn't motivate me. I don't care. I don't want to. This is not going to work for me. Oh, well, you're good at talking to people. I'm like, well, I need to find something else. I ended up getting a teaching degree. I got my marketing degree, but so it was just kind of funny. I just was like, I didn't ask enough questions, and I just was guided by people, one comment here or there, people saying you're good at this, you should try that. And then when you're young and you're 17 or 18 years old, you're like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I'll do that. And then it's like, no. There's people out there that do this for a living that can help you sooner rather than later. So take advantage of those opportunities for sure. It's great advice.
And then to
So,
know
yeah,
how to do it too, right? Like, for
yeah,
example, I was doing workshops at an employment resource center, and these women were amazing. They had been through a lot in their life, and they hadn't worked in years,
yeah,
because, one woman went, oh my gosh, had like the worst life, and she was really trying to, come out of this. But the stories were so sad. And I
yeah.
remember one of these women came in at the end of the month, and I said, "Are you okay?" Because she didn't seem okay. And she said, "Yeah, I ran out of money a few days ago, so now only my kids eat and I don't." And
Oh my gosh.
my heart was breaking. And after a while, I thought, I can't do this. I was so sad. I'm just not, I just take on, I remember giving her money, and I just couldn't sit there and do that. It was just so heartbreaking. So there's work that I do where I actually do a lot of volunteer work with a homeless shelter in Toronto. But for my main work, I realized I need to be working with people where I'm not hearing those stories, where people
Yes,
are, like executives who are doing career transition and things like that. And that's okay, right? That's
right.
okay to kind of, but that little tweak wouldn't have been known to me, if I hadn't done the career counseling to understand, oh, your audience too, right? And
Yes,
right, and
yes.
so I say, bless you if you can, work with people with trauma, because that is really difficult to do. It's really difficult to do. And I don't think I can do it. I would just be crying every single
I,
day,
I,
right?
um, I know when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and when I was in college getting my degree, I'm like, do I want to be in psychology? Like, I love the whole human psychology and understanding the brain. I love it. But same as you, I'm like, I cannot listen one-on-one to people's problems. I take them on, and then I want to help every person. And then I make it my responsibility to help them. And then if I see them again and they haven't helped themselves or they haven't taken my help, I'm like, but it was just that, I couldn't, I'm like, I can't get my head around it. It will drive me insane. And I'll always be thinking about the same as you. I just bless the people that can. Thank goodness there's people like that out there, because everyone obviously needs to talk about the problems, but letting them go, I'm very empathetic, and the energy was just good. I'll get stuck in it, and I won't be good.
Exactly.
So I'm like you, which is why I'm doing something like this instead. This to me is more higher level energy, and the vibration is different, and I can process it and be excited about it, and not be bogged down. It's
Yes.
probably the best way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is there anything, I mean, obviously there's always things you wish you learned earlier. Is there anything that you're so loving it now that you wish, gosh, if I had just had this tool or whatever it is sooner? Is there anything like that in your life that comes to mind, that there's, wishing you had a word, a phrase, a tool that you had earlier in your life or career?
You know what, the only thing, I guess, being sort of I guess I call myself a solopreneur, that I was so glad when I discovered online marketing and started to educate myself, because I think that just brings a certain amount of freedom, right, to your business. So I'm so glad that I discovered it. And, I guess I wish now that I had done so much more in it years ago, right, to really learn. But yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's like you said, you can't really, whether you're working for yourself or not, you do have to be able to market yourself. And I'm learning that even now with my book and my podcast. It's like, whether it's a big revenue stream for me or not, no one's going to know about it unless I tell them about it, and no one else is going to tell anyone about it, because it's my work. Yes, it's definitely something that there's been a huge learning curve for me, because I thought, oh, I can figure out how to do these things, to do the podcast, et cetera, and get them out there. Oh, then there's telling everyone about it and sharing that information, and how are you gonna connect it to anyone? And there's obviously lots of experts that'll help you with that, but those also cost a lot of money, and that would be easy just to hand over too. But if you could figure it out yourself, yeah, there's a lot to be gained. But it's not just the passion that you need to have. It's like you said, all those other skills to run things.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely a
Exactly.
big part of it. Yeah. So, Louisa, I have 2 questions for you, final questions for you. You can answer in the order you would like. What's the greatest gift that you offer the world every day? So you have to brag a little bit. And then what's one new thing or idea you're taking away from our conversation today?
Sorry, what's the second question?
What's one new thing you're taking away from our conversation today?
Okay. So with the first one, I think my greatest gift is I always say that I'm the drop in the pond. So I am the person that, I'm the bridge kind of between all the research and applications in positive psychology. And I teach a whole bunch of people around the world about that. And then they go out and they're kind of the ripples. So I'm the drop in the pond, and then I can just see the ripples from there. And I think that is, as I teach, I always say that, I love people, so when I get up in front of an audience, I think, how can I love these people in the best way that I can? And I do that whether I'm in business or whether I'm in doing that with my girlfriends, so I think love is a real superpower for me when I'm, with groups. And, I just try to say, how can I love these people who are in front of me, or how can I love this person that I'm talking to right now, or how can I love this person as they're making me a coffee, at my local coffee place,
Yeah, I love that.
and so I think that's really important. And
I
I
love
think,
that. It's a beautiful way to interact with people, even like you're just thinking it to yourself and you can send that energy. It's beautiful.
yeah, and I think, I remember going to a meetup. People were talking about this idea of love and how you can't just love everybody. They didn't get the whole idea of love is just an emotion. They thought you had to love something, right?
Yeah.
You had to either be in love with someone, or you had to love this, food, or, whatever it
Right.
was. They didn't understand the concept of love as an emotion. And if I can be in that emotion of love, no matter what I'm doing, it actually changes my body. It actually changes my field of energy with people. And I was talking to a radiologist the other day. You can measure that. You
Yes.
can measure that energetic field now, right? So
Right.
there is a certain energy when you're in those feelings of love, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And
You're right. Yes, I love it. And love that it can be measured now. Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's written several books. I'm sure you've heard of him, but he talks about that, like brain, literally images in the brains that change people's blood work changes based on using gratitude. It's unbelievably fascinating to me that it is that not really simple, but it kind of is. And I love that it's being studied and proven. So people aren't just like saying like, this is a woo-woo concept, it's like, no, it actually literally changes your physiology in your body. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is fascinating. It is awesome. And
Yeah.
and I can feel it. Also, I feel calmer when I'm talking to people, right? Because I don't feel like I have to impress people or change myself to fit in or anything like that. When you're in love, you can just be like, I love this person. I'm going to try and show up the best way I can. And they don't have to love me back,
Right.
for me to be
Totally.
able to be in that love space, right? It's just kind of this total self-acceptance, right, of who
Yeah.
you are. And I can feel it right away when I'm just not with the right people, right? I remember being uncomfortable with this group of people, but they were all friends of my ex-husband's, and so I was going, and I remember another friend of mine came to one of these events, and 2 minutes in, she looks at me and says, "What are we doing here?" Like she could just feel it, and she just articulated it like, what is
Right.
happening? Like she could just feel that we were just not with the right people.
What did you do?
And we
You
left
left.
because we thought, I think we stayed maybe 15 more minutes or whatever, but then the plan was, let's go. Like we're not, I used to do that years ago. You just try to fit in and you try to, show up. But, I just realized after a while, I don't need to do that anymore.
It's
I
so
can just,
empowering.
I can just be who I want to be. Um, but yeah, I think one of the takeaways from this particular conversation is, I think, to kind of just be more self-accepting, right? Just to be able to, take a look and say, it's okay. I mean, I shared the story of how I, decided who I was going to be working with someone else. And they're like, thank you for sharing that story, because I always thought that I had to do the hard things, right? You always think if you're not helping, the right people or whatever, there's something wrong with that, and that it's okay to kind of choose, where you're going to best shine, right? Because
Yes.
if you are shining, then you're going to help so many more people than if you're not shining, right? And so, I think that's one of my greatest takeaways is the reminder, for myself and others that, it's okay to just accept yourself for who you are and shine as bright as you can, because that's what's best going to serve the world.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. That's a great place to end our conversation. Thank you. So tell everyone about the book and how they can work with you or get in touch with you or your newsletter. What's the best way?
This is my book, Wire Your Brain for Confidence, the Science of Conquering Self-Doubt. And you can get it on Amazon and around the world. You can come to my website, louisajewell.com, and get in touch with me. And you can sign up. I do a weekly newsletter video. I call it my weekly juice. So you can sign up for a weekly juice. You can also go to my website and download. I do talk a lot about women who ruminate. So women who something happens and they think about it over and over and over, or they're overthinking. So I have a free ebook as well. If you come to my website, you can download my free ebook called The Rumination Cure. So how do you cure yourself? And I'm going to be doing a new program around that soon too, because what we say to ourselves in life all day, every day, or after disappointment or after failure, or, no matter what is happening, is so important to your well-being. And in fact, rumination is known as one of the #1 contributors to female depression. So we have to get a handle on that. So
I love that. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing up, and thanks for the work you do, and keep doing it and shining brightly. Obviously, we need more people just like that.
And Julie, the same for you. It's so wonderful to see all the amazing work that you're doing. And if I could support you, please let me know how else I can support you.
Thank you. All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you loved this episode. Don't forget to like us, subscribe, review, and share it. I hope you were truly inspired. And for a little more inspiration, don't forget to pick up my book, Peace, Possibilities, and Perspective: 8 Secrets to Serenity and Satisfaction in Your Life and Career. I can't wait to get you love in your life.